Hey, what is going on, guys? Coming at you with a brand new deck profile, and today I'll be showing you guys my counter fairies. So to celebrate this momentous occasion of a brand new deck profile, I decided to bust out the old Avatar Aang mat. So it has been a while since I've actually used this mat for a deck profile, and I did kind of miss it. Avatar Aang is one of my favorite characters of all time, and I do just absolutely love this fan artwork, so I figured I'd go ahead and bust it out for this deck profile. So starting off here with the monsters, we have the Triple Bountiful Artemis. Do feel free to let me know in the comments if I butchered that pronunciation. Not really too confident with how the last part of his name is pronounced there. But Bountiful is just really good. It's a staple in any counter fairy deck because you just get to draw a card each time a counter trap's activated. That does include your opponent's side of the field as well. So you can very easily in one turn be able to draw like 2 free cards off of it. And it's a card you want to keep on field as long as possible, just for continually gain advantage, being able to fill up your back row with more counter traps, and just out advantage your opponent. Then we have the free Guiding Ariadne as support for Bountiful and the counter traps. Of course, as a pendulum, it basically makes your counter traps cost free, to where you don't have to discard for costs and you don't have to pay life points for cost of counter traps. And then, of course, if it is destroyed by any means, doesn't even have to hit the graveyard or hit the extra deck. Just if it's destroyed by any means, you can reveal free counter traps from your deck. Your opponent picks one to add to the hand, and then the rest gets shuffled back into the deck. So Ariadne overall just an absolute staple, great card for counter traps. Being able to make them cost free and also being able to search them out. Then we have the 2 Archfiend Eccentric. Just a high skill pendulum monster that can out annoying things. Of course, as a scale, you can destroy itself and another spell or trap card on the field. You can use it if you want to pop Ariadne if you need to get that search, but you're mostly going to use it as an MST on one of your opponent's cards. And then as a monster, you can tribute it to destroy one monster they control. So just very nice spot removal. A high skill if you need it. The only problem with it in this deck is that your scales go from 3 to 7. And unfortunately, it is a level 3, which means once you use it, you're not really able to get it back, but still overall a pretty good card. Then for the Draco Engine, we have the 1 Luster, the 1 Master for the Draco Slayers, and then finally the 2 Lector for the Draco Overlords. So of course 1 Luster is very good in combination with Ariadne. Being able to pop it and then search another Ariadne, get the search off Ariadne for a counter trap is just too good. Really wish this card was at 3, but this deck would be a little bit busted if Luster was at 3. The 1 Master is kind of like a watered down Luster, being able to pop your Ariadne when it's in scale, to get the search if you need to, is pretty good. And then I decided to do the 2 Lector over, say, 1 Lector, 1 Vector, or 2 Vector, just because number 1, it is a high scale, which combos well with Ariadne. I balanced out the ratio of the scales to where it's 5 high scales and 4 low scales. And then it has a slightly better effect, in my opinion, than Vector, to where it negates the effects of pendulum monsters when it's in the scale. And then if it bows a pendulum monster, it can destroy itself and the pendulum monster at the end of the damage step. So overall, just a bit of a better monster. Has 100 extra attack compared to Vector. And again, it is a high scale, whereas Vector is a low scale. So that is it for the monsters. For spells, we have the Triple Card Demise. Just adds a ton of consistency to this deck since you don't really spell summon that much. You're not really too concerned about dealing damage. You're just concerned about digging deep into your deck to find counter traps, to find Bountiful, to find Ariadne, so on and so forth. And Card Demise is just really great for letting you do that. And then since most of your monsters are pendulums, you're not too worried about being able to dump your hand to get the free draws off of it, or being able to empty your hand before the end phase to make sure you don't have to discard anything. So it just blends really well with the deck. Then we have the Triple Pod Duality to go along with it, to dig for those key combo pieces. Then the 1 Upstart Goblin for some added consistency. Next we have the 2 Moon Mirror Shield. This basically is in place of what normally would be a staple in counter fairies, the 2 Honest. Unfortunately, Honest is kind of a hard one to play in this variant because of Card Demise. You of course would have to discard Honest at the end phase, which isn't good. The 2 Moon Mirror Shield basically does the same job. Allows, say, your Bountiful or your Guiding Ariadne or whatever monster you want to equip it to, be able to beat over anything in battle. Makes it to where your Bountiful will stay on the field longer, puts more pressure on your opponent, allows you to be able to beat over bigger monsters, which this deck does sometimes have a problem with. Then, of course, if it is destroyed from the field and sent to the graveyard, you just pay 500 to put it back on top of the deck, so it is easily recyclable. And again, the big thing is just keeping Bountiful on board. Then for some other one-ofs, we have the 1 Draco Face-Off. Do keep in mind that you can still activate this under Duality and Card Demise, since the Special Summon effect is optional. Of course, in that situation, you would choose to place the one that your opponent chooses on the Pendulum Zone, and then the other would go to the extra deck. And the big thing with this is that you get a 50-50 shot of getting Luster in your Pendulum Zone if it's still in deck, which is the big reason you play it, because you really want to get Luster in the scale along with Ariadne. And then for the final spell, we have the 1 Raigeki. So now to wrap up the main deck with the traps. Starting off, we have the triple Ultimate Providence. I would make an argument that this is probably the best counter trap in the deck, even over Solemn Strike, especially in combination with Ariadne, because you don't have to pay the discard cost for Providence, and you just basically get a free Solemn Judgment out of it. And even without Ariadne, it still isn't that dead, because you do have a decent amount of monsters, decent amount of spells, and a lot of traps, so you can still get off its effect, but you're mostly wanting to get it off when you have Ariadne in scale. Then we have the free Drastic Drop-Off. Basically what this does is if your opponent adds a card from their deck to the hand, or they draw a card, you can activate this to make them discard one of the cards that they drew. So of course you can activate this on draw phase, which is usually what you're going to do with this, to where you can get an instant draw off a Bountiful if it's on the board. If, say, they add a card from deck to hand, or they draw a card off a card effect, you can Drastic Drop off it and just discard to the graveyard. Do keep in mind, though, if they do add multiple cards from deck to the hand, like say they add two different cards at the same time, we'll make them discard one of them at random, so do keep that in mind with drop off. Then we have the free Solemn Strike. Obviously a really good card on its own, but even better in this set considering the fact that you don't have to pay a cost when Ariadne is on board. And then to go along with it, we have the 1 Solemn Warning to complete the Solemn Quartet. Then we have the 2 Chaos Trap Hole. Even with Strike, I wanted to main these because of the fact that it has a better matchup against, say, Brilliant Abyss, PK Fire, and Monarchs. And just overall, it's still a decent card, even with Strike, being able to pay 2,000, negate the summon of a light or dark monster and banish it, whereas Strike would just send it to graveyard. Then, of course, you don't have to pay costs with Ariadne. I've said that enough times already. Then for the final counter trap, we have the 2 Curse Seal, the Forbidden Spell. Even in some matchups that aren't as spell heavy, it's still really good to be able to negate a certain power spell and just stop it from being used for the rest of the game. Like against Cosmos, for example, being able to negate their first Cosmo Town and not allow them to activate the rest of the game is really good. Being able to negate a Twin Twisters in the BA PK Fire matchup is really good. Stop them from using the rest of the game, because that's a card that can really blow you out if it does resolve on you. And you do play enough spells to where you can get this off if need be without Ariadne, but of course with it you don't have to pay the discard cost. Then for the final trap, we have the free Stormy Mirror Force. Pretty much every deck profile I've seen for Counter Fairies, with the recent support, has been playing Quaking Mirror Force instead of Storming. And I understand why people do that, but I personally prefer Storming because it's of course non-targeting. It gets around floaters, and the big thing it does over Quaking is that it actually gets the monsters off the board, whereas with Quaking it just splits them face down. And unfortunately this deck does have problems sometimes getting over monsters with Vigor Defense, and it also doesn't really do a lot of damage at a time. So I like the idea of Storming, being able to remove the monsters off the board, and then opening the way to get a little bit more damage on board. So that is it for the main deck. Total of 40 cards. It's 12 monsters, 11 spells, and 17 traps. Now on to the extra deck. So starting off for our Draco Slayer monsters, we have the 1 Ignister, the 1 Dinoster, and the 1 Majester. Of course, Ignister, you can make with Luster. It's really good because you can pop your own Ariadne and then shuffle a card in the field back into the deck. Of course, it does not target. Dinoster, there's a decent 2950 wall that you can go into just by sending two of the pendulums required for him to the graveyard. It can be a decent one to sit on. And then Majester is really good because you can at end phase search out any of the pendulums in your deck, which does include Guiding Ariadne, Luster, or Eccentric Archfiend. So just really good overall. Then for some upper rank 4s, we have Abyss Dweller, Karen Gorgon, Castell, Dagusta Emerald, Dark Rebellion XYZ Dragon, Diamond Dire Wolf, Cowboy, 101, 106, the combo of 39 Utopia and S39 Lightning. Of course, really good against Cosmo to get over their big ships. Just in general, get a lot of damage on board. And then finally, we have the one Black Ship of Corn. As far as the extra deck, a couple of changes I consider making. The Black Ship's kind of a filler card because I didn't really have any other good rank 4s on me to really put in here. I definitely would consider replacing it for like a Fairy Cheer Girl or a Starlight Pile Dynamo. Karen Gorgon I probably would have placed as well for one of those. I could also say replace a Dark Rebellion or Diamond Dire Wolf or one of those two for a Concealer Omega as well. The Pile Dynamo and Omega are good because most of your deck are lights and they are pretty good rank 4 Xyz monsters on their own. And Fairy Cheer Girl is one you can make with either 2 Bountiful or 2 Ariadne or a combination of both since they're fairies, and then you just get to draw a card off of it, which is pretty good. So that is it for the extra deck. For the side deck, we have the triple MST, for annoying back row. We really don't have anything we want to discard in this deck, so we obviously can't play Twin Twister. Then we have the double Necro Valley. What I really like about this is not only is it good against this meta right now, good against Brain Abyss, good against PK Fire, good against Cosmo, decent against Monarchs, but it also is a floodgate that doesn't take up one of your back row slots, which can be very important in this deck since you want to fill up your back row with a bunch of counter traps. So that's another reason why I like the 2 Necro Valley, along with it already being good on its own. Then we have the triple Imperial Iron Wall for Cosmo, the triple Mask of Restrict for Monarch, the double Wiretap. This is a pretty decent counter trap on its own. Really good for the Burning the Abyss PK Fire matchup because it can shuffle back like one of their Phantom Knight trap cards like Break Sword to where they can't use it in the graveyard. Can also shuffle back a Fire Lake so they can't recycle it off of Dante. So that's why I prefer Wiretap over say Dark Bribe or 7 Tools. Then for some one-ohs, we have the 1 Macro Cosmos and the 1 Soul Drain. Biggest reason for playing these along with Necro Valley is because of the Mermail matchup. Necro Valley doesn't do a whole lot against Mermails, but Soul Drain and Macro Cosmos can completely shut them down. Make it to where they're not getting any of their discard effects off. Their effects when they hit the graveyard, and they're just not able to build up their graveyard for say Moon and Glacia, for example, or they're not able to bring anything back off of Norden. So that's why the Soul Drain and Macro are pretty good. So that is it for this brand new deck profile for Counter Fairies for May 2016. I do hope you guys enjoyed it. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember also to follow me on Twitch. My username on there is DrewDex. Feel free to follow me on there for some live Xbox gaming. And I'll catch you guys next time.